Hi folks, hope you all had a great weekend. I'm Kirsten and this is Casey's Book Corner, your one-stop shop for book reviews, book lists and book recommendations. Today, since it is the start of September and the less said about how far through the year we are, the better, I'm going to be shaking things up just a little bit, keep it fresh, and I'm going to be doing a tier listing of all the books I read in August. So with that being said, pull up a chair, get comfy, get cosy, grab a little drinky, and let's get the show on the road. Okay, first of all, let's quickly go through my stats for last month. Now I use Storygraph to track my reading. I'm really competitive against myself, and as much as I hate creating graphs, I do quite like looking at them. So Storygraph really works for me from that perspective. So let's have a little look. So in August, you can see I read 9 books. That's about 3 less than the month before, because I went back to college a couple of weeks ago. So my reading is always going to slump just a tiny little bit when I have to do studying rather than reading in my free time. 2,100 pages and just under 42 hours of audiobook. It's pretty decent, I think. I've also got a massive range of genres. Thriller was the biggest focus, contemporary, mystery, romance and erotica, were the other genres I read or listened to. And you can also see here the yellow is my audiobook listens, and you can see it completely ramped up about a week ago when I started college. That's my commute. So you can absolutely see that my listening is going to go up and my actual reading is going to go down. That's just the nature of the beast. But anyway, I love a little graph, and I think that's a really interesting little graphic. So there you have it. Anyway, let's get on with the actual tier listing, shall we? Switch over onto my cheeky little tier list. So, I'll give you a quick rundown. This should make sense. It should be reasonably self-explanatory, but I'll go through it anyway. So we've got the little love heart going on here. Those are the ones that, if someone asks me what I read recently, these are the first ones that are going to pop into my mind and just spew information about these books to people in a way of showing my love for the book. The next one here is the thumbs up. These ones, great books, really enjoyed them, completely solid, definitely recommend. The next one is my little neutral face. So these were fine, but there was no pizzazz about them. Nothing that really stood out. Kind of almost forgettable in a way. These are the ones that kind of get lost in the mist sometimes because they're just bleh. And then we've got the thumbs down. This is, again, pretty self-explanatory. These are the ones that I didn't particularly like. They're just not my style, not my cup of tea. There were elements that just weren't for me. And then the final one, I'll admit, it will be very rare that I will put anything into that category because I think that all books have got some redeeming features, or at least all books I've come across so far, at least. These are my hated it, will absolutely not recommend, will actively suggest that people avoid reading this book. I don't think I'll put much in there, but the category is available just in case. So these are the books that I read last month. That's my 9. These are in no particular order. They're literally just in the order that I downloaded them, rather than in any other way, shape or form. But we'll start at the left and we'll work our way along. So this one here is I Know My Name by C.J. Cooke. This was a thriller. The author was recommended to me on Instagram. I had never heard of this author before. I listened to an audiobook and I really, really liked it. The rest of this author's books are now on my TBR, so thank you very much for that. Really good story about a woman who basically washes up on a remote island with no memory of her life. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what's going on. You then have another voice actor who is reading the part of a man whose wife has gone missing and his search for her. So it's really interesting. Gets into some deep, deep topics that I wasn't quite expecting, but really enjoyable. I kind of figured out the twist, but it was really well done. So let's pop that up here in the Love Heart section, because that one has completely just got me into a whole new author. So this will always be close to my heart. Next up was Staunch. This is a memoir, so this is my only non-fiction read of the month. And this is a memoir about a woman who has a little bit of a midlife crisis, has been through some, let's say, difficult relationships of a romantic nature in the past. And she's dealing with healing, basically. That's what she's looking to do. So in order to help her achieve that, she goes on a little holiday / pilgrimage to India with her nan and her 2 great aunts. The nan and the aunts were kind of raised there as children, so they're going back to their roots. She's learning her family history. Really engaging, really funny, super heartwarming. Really enjoyed it. Not usually something I would delve into. Memoirs can sometimes feel a little bit dry, but I really liked it. Stick that in the like section. Next up, we've got Haunting and Hunting Adeline. I read both of these last month. I really loved Haunting Adeline. The storyline, the plot, it's a really intense thriller. Yes, there's graphic spicy stuff and there's graphic violence, but the underpinning story was really, really got me completely hooked. I absolutely adored it. But I cannot say the same, unfortunately, for Hunting Adeline. Zed is the Zed is the male main character, and he is just an insufferable twerp. He is narcissistic. He is so full of himself. I actually was writing notes while I was reading this book, and they were just what a knob, or what an absolute tit, or I hate this man. And I just couldn't really immerse myself in the story in any way, shape or form, because I don't like him as a person. I think he's an idiot. So, and it's not even the sadistic side of him, it's the narcissistic, I am God and you will treat me as such. Oh no, get away from me. So that actually slid down almost into the dislike category if it wasn't for the story. I was so engaged with this one that I really, the story helped me ride that out. But Zed is an absolute, no, he's not for me. Anywho, moving on swiftly. I could rant about that for days. Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the second and final part of the duology, the Shepherd King duology. I've already done my full kind of long form review on both of those books, but I absolutely adored this. This blew the other one out of the park, and the other one was already really good. The 2 characters that were the main romantic focal point of this were just, I loved them. I fell in love with both of them individually and as a couple, and I just adored how it tied everything together. We got so much character development for so many different characters. It was just beautiful. Honestly, beautiful. Next up, we have Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I listened to this on audiobook, and it's another one up here in the Love Heart section. Spectacular, especially on audiobook. So basically the premise is that this woman was suspected of murdering her best friend 5 years ago. The whole town thought she had done it, but she didn't remember what had happened that night. Fast forward 5 years into the present day, and she is the subject of a true crime podcast. So, you spend some of the book in her mindset, as she is the subject of this podcast, and you spend the other bit listening to the podcast itself, finding out what this podcast dude is discovering and listening to the interviews that he has with people. Really, really interesting concept, just a slightly different way of putting the story across, and on audiobook it was just spectacular. Absolutely loved it. Again, started to guess the twist maybe a little bit earlier on, but that didn't take away from the twist happening, and from the build up to it was really, really good. Next up, we've got The Shadow Man. Now I'm afraid I'm having to stick this in the thumbs down category for a couple of reasons. One, it was in the horror category on Amazon and it is not a horror, so I was disappointed because I wanted something scary. This was slightly creepy, but it did not even remotely tick the box of horror. It's about a group of friends who, during summer in their childhood, something happened and none of them have any memory of what that thing is. They come together as adults to try and solve the mystery of what happened. Another reason why I had to put it into the slightly dislike side is it's very, very similar to Stephen King's It. That's kind of the premise of it. The first part of the book is the children, and the second part of the book is them as grown-ups. That's kind of what this book was doing. It was also really quite predictable in terms of what was really going on. So, yeah, not quite for me. I think maybe if it had been pitched as a mystery or a thriller, I maybe would have been able to see past it a little bit, but it just wasn't scary. Not even in the slightest. Anywho, next up is Elin Hildebrand's Natural Selection. This one goes in the, yeah, it was fine category for me. It's a short story, so it's not generally my cup of tea. It did go in a different direction to where I thought it was going to go, so I quite liked that, but it was incredibly predictable, which is something that short stories can sometimes fall into that trap, unfortunately. I did like the Darwin references in this book. That was quite nice. But yeah, it was just alright. And last, but by no means least, In Our Likeness. Now this is a book about AI and what could happen if somebody got hold of technology and manipulated technology to their own desires. And it was really interesting. I like this kind of thing because AI, it's a part of all our lives now. But there is that little undercurrent of we don't really know how far it can go. So I really like the idea of a novel that sort of explores that. The reason it didn't go into the love category is because it got kind of weird towards the end. Like, it went, I felt like, have I been taking mushrooms or something? What is going on here? I had no clue. So that was a little bit, yeah, I don't think that was really necessary. So it kind of took me out of the immersement of it a little bit. But other than that, the premise of it was really interesting. And it was a pretty good read, to be fair. And there you have it. There's my 9. Now, bearing in mind that this is not the same as what my star ratings would be for these books. Because when I do a star rating, I'm rating that book just individually. Whereas here, I'm kind of comparing them against each other too, and how they made me feel in that moment in time. So that could well be very different when I look at my tier ranking at the end of the year. I'll have read other books by then, so my perceptions may be different. But there you have it. Let me know if you've read these books, where you would have categorised them, if you felt the same as me or different. And let me know what you think about the tier system. the little tier video thing. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, but let me know how you feel about this, whether this setup works for you or not, and yeah, we'll take it from there. And there you have it, my first monthly Roundup tier list situation. Didn't go quite as dreadfully as I thought it was going to. I was a little bit nervous about sharing screen and all this kind of stuff because I'm not very technically sound-minded, but it went okay, pretty easy to do, so I'm excited to see what else we can maybe do in future. But that's it from me today. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'll be back in a couple of days' time anywho with another review. So until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Cheerio!